Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, One Slow Morning, and I just wanted to take you along on this beautiful Sunday morning of making breakfast with my family and a fall-inspired sourdough bread. So I'm just preheating my oven to 425 for my Dutch baby, and we'll get started. Dutch babies are really simple to make. I just have my flour, sugar, cinnamon, and salt already in my bowl, and I'm adding 3 eggs to the bowl. Now these eggs are room temperature, they just sit out on my counter. And then I also had my milk already measured out and sitting on my counter. To get a Dutch baby to rise, you really want room temperature ingredients, so that's an important step to follow. And then I just use a whisk, and I whisk everything together until everything's incorporated. So this is a pear, cinnamon, walnut Dutch baby. So I'm just chopping up 2 pears, and I'm having to hand them to my daughter in the middle of it as well, you know, mom life. But I just chop them into little slices. And I also forgot to mention, when I preheat my oven, I put my 8-inch cast iron in the oven to preheat with the oven. So we just chop them. I don't do any fancy or particular things, but you can do that if you want to. I just kind of go with the flow and just get them chopped. Now once my oven is preheated, I'll grab my cast iron, and I always make sure to sit it on a surface. And here I forgot to add my 4 tablespoons of butter, so if you make this, make sure you do that. My cast iron is seasoned so it can handle it and it didn't stick, but if it's not seasoned very well, it won't work for you. So I just put a little bit of butter on top of it, and then I put my pears in no particular order. You can make a pretty design if you want. I just kind of try to cover the whole surface in fruit, because the fruit is what makes it sweet. It gives it more flavor, but I don't do any fancy designs. After I get my fruit on there, I add my walnuts. I just kind of sprinkle them on top. Those are chopped walnuts. And then I sprinkle some extra cinnamon, because you can never have too much. Now here's my Dutch baby after I've pulled it out of the oven. It's puffy, delicious. We just add maple syrup and whipped cream to the top. Now once I get my recipe on my blog, I will add it below, so be looking for that. Now it's been feeling like fall here in Kentucky, so I wanted to make this pumpkin cinnamon sugar swirl bread. It's delicious, so I'm just adding my water and my sourdough starter to a bowl here, and I'm just mixing them together, getting out all the lumps and clumps before I add my flour. So I just use a fork to do that. It's super easy. Once everything is mixed up, then I will start measuring up my flour. Now I do have this on a kitchen scale. You can't see it from this angle, but I am using my kitchen scale to measure out my ingredients. I prefer to do that method. I just think that it works a lot better. Now if you look here, I just added a little too much flour. I just pull it out. If I add too much, it's super easy to fix. And then I kind of make a little well in the middle to add my salt. And I just measure out my salt on my kitchen scale as well before I start to mix everything together. Now once I get my salt in there, I just mix everything together with my hands. The dough's going to be really shaggy and seem kind of tough at first, and that's totally fine, because we're going to do some stretch and folds, and that's going to soften the dough up really nice, and it's going to be a really soft, silky dough once we get going. Once it's all mixed up, I just cover it, and I like to put a plate just to kind of seal it off, and then I like to set my dough on top of my dishwasher as it's going. The heat just kind of helps it rise. And then we'll do some stretch and folds. This is after this is the 3rd stretch and fold that I did on this dough here. So you can see it's really soft and silky, coming together very nicely. So we just do that 3 different times, about 30 minutes apart. Now I'm going to mix up that delicious pumpkin cinnamon sugar filling. Now I'm using my kitchen scale again. Here you can see I love my kitchen scale. So that's the cinnamon, and then I'm going to add the sugar here. I just did like 6 grams of cinnamon and 50 grams of sugar. And then next I'll get my pumpkin out, and I'll measure that on the kitchen scale as well. I did about 100 grams of pumpkin. I don't follow everything exactly to the science. I know some people who do sourdough do, and I think it's just a personal preference. I just kind of go with the flow and see what works, and this one worked out really, really well, so I'm going to get my pumpkin measured out now. After everything's all measured out, I just stir everything together. You just want to stir it with a fork or a whisk or something just to make sure that everything gets incorporated and it's stirred really well, and the sugar is kind of absorbed into the pumpkin. Now my bread has risen for about 6 hours. It's doubled in size. I'll show you here in a second, and I just use a Silpat mat to make cleanup easier. So I'll uncover it and you'll see it's doubled in size there. It's got some nice bubbles. So we'll just put it on the Silpat mat and we'll let it rest after we get it out of there for about 10 minutes. This just lets the dough relax and makes it easier for you to spread it out and roll it up. Now that my dough has rested, I'm just going to get my proofing basket ready. I just put some flour in there, make sure it's all nice and coated. This just ensures that the bread doesn't stick when I'm trying to get it out of the basket. So now I'm just going to shape my dough into a rough rectangle, just patting and stretching. It's a really rough shape. It's not perfect, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect to be delicious. So we'll get that stretched out there. Now once it's to the rough rectangle, I just add the filling. I started out with a fork and it was working pretty good till I got to the end, and then my wonderful, patient, lovely husband handed me a spoon. But you're just going to spread the filling, leave about an inch border around the edge. This will help you be able to kind of seal it off so all that delicious filling's not leaking out once the bread actually starts to bake. So just get all of it in there and spread it out. You're just going to spread it as evenly as possible. It's like, again, it's not going to be perfect. And when you roll, just kind of roll the edges in as you're rolling it up. That'll kind of help seal the filling in. So just keep rolling until you get it all. Now once you get to the end, you just are going to kind of pinch off the seal and kind of roll it in a circle to ensure everything is sealed off. And you'll put it seam side up in your proofing basket and cover it. Once it's been covered, you'll let it sit for about 30 minutes to an hour. Just let it get kind of puffy and put it on a piece of parchment paper. And see, that came out really easy. And then you'll just kind of spread your flour around. This is how you get that really pretty design. I didn't do a pretty design for this one. I just cut 3 slashes in the dough just so that it had room to expand. I just did something simple. This is my Lom. I love it. So much easier than using a knife, and it has allowed me to expand my designs. I just didn't feel like doing a fancy design with this one. So after that, you'll just have your Dutch oven preheated, and this is what it looks like after it's baked for 20 minutes covered in a preheated Dutch oven. It's getting puffy, it's beautiful, and we'll just stick it back in the oven to let it brown and finish cooking off. So this is what this gorgeous loaf looks like after it's cooked. Best sourdough bread cutting knife ever, I'll link it below. And the next morning I enjoyed it with some butter toasted, absolutely delicious. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope that you'll come back for more homesteading videos, cooking videos, motherhood videos, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.